My name's Matt. I'm 36, and I've been married to my wife Anna for a little over 7 years now. She's 34. We met when we were both still figuring life out, early 20s, college years. I was majoring in civil engineering, the kind of guy who color-coded his calendar and never missed a class. Anna? She was studying graphic design and somehow always looked like she'd just stepped out of a daydream. Not in a careless way, just light. That's the word. She moved through life with this effortless calm that drew people in. We met through mutual friends at a house party. I remember she was wearing this oversized hoodie and had her hair up in one of those messy buns that somehow looked intentional. She was leaning over the kitchen counter, sketching something on a napkin while everyone else was just getting drunk and yelling over music. I asked what she was drawing. She said it was a redesign of the party layout, how to make the space flow better. I laughed. That was the start. From there, we just clicked. No games, no drama. We started dating that fall, and it was like the world slowed down a little. I'd pick her up for late-night diner runs, and she'd leave notes in my textbooks during finals. She brought me into her world, art shows, sketchbooks, spontaneous road trips. And I brought her into mine, blueprints, podcasts about buildings, the comfort of structure. We got married 2 years after graduating. Small ceremony, just close friends and family. We rented this little venue tucked into the hills outside Bend. It was a perfect autumn day, sun filtering through golden trees, crisp air, the smell of pine and cider. She walked down the aisle barefoot. Said she wanted to feel the earth. That's Anna. Now we live just outside Portland, in a cozy 2-bedroom house with creaky floors and a yard full of clover. Our life is quiet in all the right ways. We both work from home most days, me as a civil engineer, she as a designer for a boutique creative firm. Mornings start with coffee and playlists. Evenings are usually a mix of cooking dinner together or ordering Thai food and watching reruns of the same 3 shows we always cycle through. There's something comforting about that rhythm. We don't have kids, never felt like a gap, just a choice. We've got June, our rescue mutt who thinks she owns the house. Weekends are for hikes, farmers markets, and late breakfasts. We take trips when we can, usually the coast or up to the mountains. She still draws all the time, sometimes on paper, sometimes on her iPad, sometimes just in the margins of receipts. And I still keep everything on a spreadsheet, right down to our monthly grocery budget. We're not flashy. We don't host big parties or post much online, but we laugh a lot. We share everything. And if you asked me a month ago to describe our marriage in one word, I think I would have said solid. Or maybe easy, in the best way. Anyway, that's the beginning. That's us. If there's one word I'd use to describe our life together, it's comfortable. In a good way, not the stagnant, beige kind of comfortable, but like being wrapped in a hoodie that smells like home. I guess what I'm trying to say is, Anna and I built a life that felt lived in and real. Not perfect, but ours. We both work from home most days, and while we're in totally different fields, we've got this unspoken rhythm. She's usually up first. She'll sneak out of bed before me, make coffee, and feed June. She always puts one mug on my side of the kitchen table, black, no sugar, the way I like it. By the time I shuffle in, she's already got her laptop open, curled up on the couch in her hoodie with her hair tied up and her feet tucked under her. My work is more structured. Calls, project updates, the occasional site visit. Hers is chaotic in the most creative way, mood boards, color palettes, back and forths with clients about how to make things feel more organic. I've watched her redesign logos, websites, even packaging for companies I now recognize in stores. She's good at what she does. Really good. I tell her that all the time. Lunchtime is our midpoint. We'll meet in the kitchen and make something simple, wraps, leftover pasta, a smoothie if we're feeling ambitious. We'll chat about our mornings, laugh over dumb memes we've sent each other, or sometimes just sit in companionable silence with music playing low in the background. She's got this habit of singing under her breath without realizing it, and I always stop what I'm doing to listen for a second. Her voice isn't trained or anything. It's just soft and real. Afternoons are quieter. We both go back into our work bubbles. June finds the sunniest spot in the house and naps like she's never known stress. By the time we're both off the clock, we usually head out for a walk, just the 3 of us. There's this trail near our house that winds along a creek. In the spring, it's all wildflowers and bees. In the fall, it smells like wood smoke and wet leaves. We don't even need to talk that much during those walks. It's just peaceful. We cook a lot. Or rather, I cook, and Anna dances around the kitchen with a glass of wine and throws in rogue spices when I'm not looking. Sometimes it works. Sometimes we order pizza. Either way, it always ends with us on the couch, feet tangled, watching reruns of the same 3 shows we've been cycling through for years. She still gets teary during the season finales, even though she's seen them a dozen times. On weekends, we keep things simple. Farmers markets on Saturday mornings. Maybe brunch. Lazy afternoons where she sketches and I lose hours tinkering with spreadsheets for projects that don't even exist yet. Sunday mornings we sleep in. No alarms. Just sunlight creeping through the curtains and the smell of fresh coffee pulling us out of bed. Looking back, it's hard to pinpoint what made those little routines feel so rich. But they did. They still do, in my memory. There's a quiet kind of joy in sharing the small stuff with someone who gets you, who feels like your other half without even trying. That's what life was like. That was our world. Some people talk about the honeymoon phase like it's something that ends. Maybe it does for some couples. For us, it just changed shape. It became less about the butterflies and more about the way she'd always wait for me to come to bed before turning off the light. Or the way we'd both stop mid-conversation when June did something ridiculous, like trying to chase her tail on the hardwood floor and sliding into the hallway mirror. It wasn't always exciting. And that was kind of the beauty of it. We took trips when we could, nothing flashy, just little getaways. A cabin in the woods every October, where we'd bring puzzles and 2 mini books and pretend we were going to unplug for the weekend. A beach rental in the spring. Every once in a while, something bigger, New Mexico, Seattle, once even Iceland. But Anna was always happiest somewhere quiet, surrounded by trees or waves, with a sketch pad in her lap and a cup of tea in her hand. We had our traditions. Sunday morning pancakes. Taco Tuesdays. A standing date night on the first Friday of every month, no matter how tired we were or what else was going on. Sometimes we'd go out, but more often than not, we'd just light candles at home, play jazz or old soul records, and cook something together. I'd read the recipe, and she'd ignore it and do her own thing. It became a running joke. Her cooking was always better when she didn't follow the rules. Our social circle was tight but steady. A few couples we met through work, some friends from college we still kept in touch with. We hosted the occasional game night or dinner party, and Anna always took the lead in making everything look beautiful without ever making it look like she tried. That was her gift, effortless charm. We talked about the future sometimes. Not in some grand, 5-year plan way, but in little passing comments. Fixing up the spare room. Maybe getting a second dog someday. Traveling more once things at work settled down. We were always planning for later, always building towards something, even if we didn't name it. I look back at all of this now, and it honestly felt like we had found our rhythm. I wasn't walking around in some fog. I wasn't ignoring red flags. We were happy. Or at least, I thought we were. And I don't just mean in the big picture, Instagram relationship kind of way. I mean in the real, everyday kind of way, the way she'd steal the blanket at night and then wrap herself around me like a human furnace, the way she'd send me dumb gifts during long meetings, or how she'd stop what she was doing just to kiss me on the top of the head as she passed behind my chair. It felt solid, like a life we'd built, brick by brick, and not just with love, but with trust. I'd never once questioned it, not in the entire time we'd been together. And if I'm being totally honest, I didn't think I ever would. I remember the day it happened, when everything shifted. Not in a big, dramatic way. No yelling. No slam doors. It was just one conversation. But it changed the entire course of my life. It was a Thursday night. We were eating Thai takeout, sitting on the floor like we always did when we didn't feel like clearing off the kitchen table. The dog was curled up nearby, and some lo-fi playlist was humming in the background. Anna was scrolling on her phone and laughing at some meme. And then, out of nowhere, she got quiet. She set her phone down, looked at me for a long second, and said, "Can I ask you something? And just, hear me out before you react." I smiled without thinking. Sure. She hesitated, which should have been my first clue. Anna was many things, but hesitant wasn't usually one of them. What would you think about an open marriage? I didn't even respond at first. I just looked at her. I thought maybe I misheard, or that she was joking. But there was no grin, no teasing in her voice. I finally said, "Wait, what?" She sat up straighter, like she'd been rehearsing this. "I've just been reading a lot lately. Articles, forums, people in long-term relationships who decide to open things up. It's not always about sex, it's about freedom, honesty, exploration. I don't know. I just thought it could be worth talking about." I stared at her like she'd grown a second head. We'd never talked about anything like that. Ever. We weren't prudes, But our relationship had always been private, loyal, close. I didn't even know where this was coming from. Nothing in our day-to-day felt off. Nothing seemed missing. But suddenly she was talking about opening the door for other people to come in. I tried to keep my voice calm. "Anna, where is this coming from?" She shrugged. "I've just been thinking a lot lately. About what it means to be with one person forever. About what we might miss out on. We love each other. Yeah, but maybe love doesn't have to mean limitation." Limitation. That word echoed in my head. I told her the truth. That I had no interest in that kind of arrangement. That I loved her, and only her. That the idea of being with someone else, letting her be with someone else, just didn't sit right with me. I remember her nodding. She said, "Okay." I figured. Just thought I'd ask. That was it. She dropped it. We finished our food. We watched something mindless on TV. I think I made a joke about how fast she went through her noodles. She laughed. But something in the air had changed. I didn't know it at the time, but that was the night something shifted in her. Maybe it had already started before that. Maybe this was her way of testing the waters, seeing if I'd go along with something she already had in motion. I don't know. What I do know is that she never brought it up again. But after that night, things started to change. She stayed out later on gym nights. Her phone buzzed more. Her smiles sometimes seemed far away, like she was laughing at something I couldn't hear. And somewhere deep in my gut, something started whispering to me. But I wasn't ready to listen. Not yet. After that night, the open marriage talk, things didn't explode. They just shifted. Subtly. Like someone turned the thermostat down a few degrees, and I couldn't quite figure out why I was cold. For a while, I convinced myself it was just a weird moment. A passing curiosity she had read about online, like one of those niche lifestyle trends people get curious about for 10 minutes before moving on. But over the next few weeks, it was like I started seeing Anna through a slightly different lens. And I hated that. I hated what it did to me, turning me into someone who second-guessed smiles, overanalyzed phone habits, and wondered who she was texting when she tilted her screen just a little too far out of sight. She was still affectionate, still herself in most ways, but there was something under the surface. Some distance I couldn't quite reach across. It was in the way she'd take her phone into the bathroom more often. The way she'd go quiet in the middle of a conversation, lost in thought, and when I asked if something was wrong, she'd say, "No, just tired." I believed her, at first. I really did. Because that's what you do when you trust someone, you give them the benefit of the doubt. And we'd built this whole life on trust. But still, I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't quite right. Her schedule started to change in little ways. Nothing dramatic. Just different. She picked up a few freelance projects that kept her extra busy, which meant more hours in her office, door closed. She started going to the gym alone again, something we used to do together, back when we first got into fitness a couple years ago. At the time, it was a bonding thing. Now, she said she needed solo time, that it helped her clear her head. I said okay. I didn't want to be that guy who made a big deal out of personal space. But the gym became a pattern. Same time every evening, like clockwork. She'd come home looking flushed, hair damp, sometimes wearing a new tank top or different leggings. I'd ask how it went, and she'd say, "Good," before changing the subject. When I suggested we go together again sometime, she smiled like I'd said something sweet but naive and said, "You hate working out at night, though." And that was that. The physical closeness between us shifted, too. We still kissed, still touched, but it started to feel measured. Like a habit, not a reflex. We hadn't been intimate in a few weeks, which wasn't unheard of during busy periods, but I couldn't ignore the tension hanging between us when I brought it up. She gave me this quiet look, said she hadn't been in the mood lately, that her head was in a weird space. I nodded and let it go, but that night I lay awake staring at the ceiling, wondering what kind of weird space I was no longer invited into. I want to be clear. I didn't have any proof. Not yet. I wasn't snooping through her phone. I wasn't tracking her location. But I knew her. And some fundamental undercurrent in our relationship, was beginning to unravel, stitch by invisible stitch. It wasn't even the words she said or didn't say, it was how she said them. The way she sometimes answered a question a beat too late, or the way her eyes didn't quite match her smile when she said she loved me. I could feel her slipping, and it terrified me because I didn't know where she was going. I started doing this thing where I'd look for confirmation that everything was still okay. A hug in the morning that felt normal. A shared laugh while watching a show. A text with a heart emoji. I clung to those things like lifelines, hoping they outweighed the heaviness in my gut. I told myself maybe this was just a rough patch. Maybe it was just stress. Maybe I was the one projecting, overthinking, imagining things that weren't there. But deep down, something inside me was whispering louder each day. Something is off. I wouldn't say I was suspicious at first. That would have required some specific reason to be. What I was, more than anything, was unsettled. That quiet, gnawing kind of discomfort that comes when something feels different, but there's no clear reason why. You tell yourself not to overthink it. You remind yourself that relationships evolve, that moods fluctuate, that people go through phases. You tell yourself it's probably nothing. But something inside me had begun paying closer attention, even if I couldn't admit it out loud. Things with Anna weren't bad. That's the strange part. She wasn't cold. She wasn't rude. She was still Anna in most ways, still laughed at my dumb jokes, still made her weird herbal teas and danced in the kitchen when she thought no one was looking. But there was a sense of absence I couldn't quite shake. Like part of her was somewhere else even when she was right in front of me. Conversations started to feel more surface level. Our time together, once so natural and easy, had begun to feel scheduled. Like we were performing a version of ourselves, just enough to maintain the illusion that everything was fine. The gym nights became more frequent. She used to skip once or twice a week, but now she went religiously. Always in the evenings, always alone. I wasn't suspicious of that on its own. Anna had always been into her fitness, but it was how she was after she got back that stood out. Her energy would shift. She'd come home sometimes buzzing, smiling in a way that felt just a little too bright for someone who had supposedly spent an hour pushing through weights and cardio. I'd ask how the gym was, and she'd say, "Good," and that would be the end of it. No details, no funny stories, no complaints. Just good. There were other things, too, smaller ones I probably wouldn't have noticed if I wasn't already feeling off-kilter. A new perfume she hadn't worn before, something floral and unfamiliar. A couple new outfits she said she found on sale, but I never saw the receipts or shopping bags. One night, she said she ran into someone from her old yoga class and ended up grabbing a quick coffee after her workout. Totally plausible. Normal, even. But there was something in the way she said it too casual, too rehearsed. Like she was laying down a story before I had a reason to ask. I wasn't checking her phone. I wasn't snooping through drawers or tracking her movements. That wasn't who I was. But I'd be lying if I said the idea didn't cross my mind once or twice. I even caught myself imagining scenarios, like if I asked to go to the gym with her, would she hesitate? Would she make an excuse? I never tested it. I told myself I didn't want to be that guy. The one who makes his wife feel interrogated. But the not knowing had its own cost. It lived in the background of everything we did, every dinner, every shared laugh, every silence that lasted half a beat too long. I didn't know if I was overthinking it all, or if I just started seeing things differently since that night she brought up the open marriage idea. Maybe I was projecting. Maybe I had a bruise that hadn't healed, and now every little shift in tone or habit felt like a punch. I kept telling myself to relax, to trust, to remember who she was. But some nights I'd lie in bed staring at the ceiling, wondering when the distance between us had gotten so wide that I could feel it with my eyes closed. I didn't want to accuse her of anything. I didn't even know what I'd be accusing her of. There was no proof. Just a series of moments that didn't add up. A quiet accumulation of absences. A version of Anna that felt slightly out of reach. Maybe it was all innocent. Maybe it was stress. Or burnout. Or just a weird season of life we hadn't talked about properly. But there were too many maybes now, and they were starting to weigh more than the things I used to feel certain of. So I kept going. I showed up. I kissed her goodnight. I tried to be patient, to be present, to believe that whatever weird space we were in would pass. But I'd be lying if I said I wasn't starting to brace myself for something. I didn't know what. I just knew that the silence between us had started to say more than the words ever did. There are certain moments in life you don't forget, not because they were big or loud, but because they changed everything. A sentence, a glance, a sound. 1 second you're one person, and the next, you're someone else entirely. For me, it was a voice, Anna's voice, soft, hushed, and unmistakably not meant for me. It was a Tuesday. Nothing about the day stood out. I'd finished work early, came home around 5. Anna wasn't expecting me. She thought I had a team dinner that night, and honestly, I had forgotten to mention it was rescheduled. I walked in quietly, trying not to startle her, thinking maybe I'd surprise her and we could grab takeout or go for a walk before the rain rolled in. I didn't call out. I don't know why. Something about the stillness in the house made me pause. I heard her before I saw her, her voice floating down the hall from the bedroom. At first, I assumed she was on a work call, but then I heard her laugh. Not the polite, filtered laugh she used on Zoom. This one was softer, fuller, intimate. I froze in the hallway, heart beating faster. It felt wrong to eavesdrop, but something made me stay. Her voice dropped to a murmur. I could barely make out the words, but they were enough. No, I can't tonight. He's home. A pause. Then another giggle. Last night was insane. I couldn't stop thinking about it all day. My body went still. I couldn't breathe. The hallway felt like it had shrunk around me. My ears were ringing, but her voice came through clear as glass. God, you're bad. Stop it. You know what that does to me. I stood there, eyes on the bedroom door, knowing I should walk away, knowing I didn't want to hear more. But I couldn't move. It was like watching the wreckage of your own life unfold in slow motion. I miss you already, she whispered. Yeah, tomorrow. Same time. I backed away before she could hear the floor creak. I don't even remember how I ended up outside, standing in the cold on the back porch with my hands shaking. June, our dog, followed me out like she could sense something was wrong. I leaned against the railing, staring at nothing, the sounds of my neighborhood carrying on like the world hadn't just tilted off its axis. I didn't cry. Not then. I didn't even feel angry yet. I felt hollow, like someone had scooped out the center of me. The worst part wasn't even what she said, it was how she said it. Happy. Light. Like this thing she was hiding wasn't a mistake or a secret she regretted. It was something she wanted. Something she looked forward to. Something that made her smile in ways I hadn't seen in weeks. I stayed outside for what must have been 15 minutes. When I finally came back in, she was in the kitchen like nothing had happened. Smiling, asking if I wanted anything for dinner. I said no. Said I'd already eaten. She didn't press. She just nodded and went back to her phone, like the woman I heard on that call had never existed. But I knew. I knew now. Everything I'd been pushing down, the doubts, the weird timing, the little lies, snapped into place like puzzle pieces. She was cheating. She had a lover. She had nights she stayed late at the gym that meant something else entirely. And the worst part? She looked happy about it. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't. I just lay there in the dark next to a woman who had just whispered someone else's name into the phone, still pretending to be my wife. She slept easily, like there was nothing wrong. Like her little secret didn't weigh on her the way it crushed me. I watched the shadows move across the ceiling for hours, trying to understand how the hell we got here. How someone who held my hand on the worst days of my life could so effortlessly hold another man behind my back. By morning, I was boiling. No more playing dumb. No more pretending not to see the writing on the wall. I wasn't going to sit in that fog anymore, not while she walked around smiling like she was the only one who mattered. I waited until she came out of the bedroom, hair up, coffee in hand, scrolling her phone like it was just another Tuesday. I said her name flat, cold, louder than usual. She looked up, startled. I could see the moment she registered my tone. She straightened up like she was getting ready for a confrontation, but she didn't say anything. Just waited. I asked her, point blank, who the hell were you talking to last night? She blinked, tilted her head, like she was confused. Still playing innocent. Still acting. I could feel my fists clenching on instinct. Don't lie to me, Anna. I heard you. I came home early. I was in the hallway. My voice was rising now, and I didn't care. You said he made you feel good. You said you missed him. You said last night was insane. And you think I'm just going to sit here like a damn fool? The color drained from her face, but she didn't crumble. She didn't deny it. She didn't apologize. She just shifted. Something in her expression hardened, and her mouth curled into this bitter, almost smug half-smile that made my blood go cold. So what? You were eavesdropping now, she said, folding her arms. That's nice. I stared at her like she had slapped me. That's where she went? That's what she chose to lead with? I stepped forward, trying to rein in the fury shaking through me. You cheated on me. And your first reaction is to accuse me of crossing a line. She shrugged. A shrug. Like she didn't owe me more than that. You already said no to the open thing. So what did you expect? To keep living this boring little routine forever? That broke something in me. The way she said it, cold, dismissive, like the last 7 years of our life together were a dead weight she'd been carrying instead of a world we built together. I couldn't even respond at first. My mouth opened, but I couldn't speak. I just stared at her, realizing in real time that this woman I thought I knew, she was gone. Maybe she had been for a while. You think I'm boring? I finally said, voice shaking. After everything I've done for you? I've been here, every damn day, building a life with you. And now you throw it away for what? Some guy who tells you you're hot in leggings and gives you attention for 10 minutes at a time. She crossed her arms tighter, jaw clenched. At least he sees me. At least he doesn't make me feel like I'm sleepwalking through my own life. That hit harder than I expected. Like I'd been sucker punched. I didn't even know how to respond to that kind of cruelty. And she didn't stop. She walked over to the kitchen counter, grabbed her keys, and said without even looking at me, "I can't do this with you. If this is how it's going to be, I'll go stay with him." I didn't move. I didn't speak. I just stood there, staring at her like I didn't recognize the person in front of me. And truthfully, I didn't. This wasn't my wife. This was someone else entirely, someone who had already moved on, who had already rehearsed this moment and come prepared to burn it all down without blinking. She opened the door, turned back just long enough to say, "You'll be fine. You always are," and then she was gone. Just like that. 7 years. All of it. Reduced to nothing but a slammed door and the sound of her tires backing out of the driveway. And I stood there, still in the living room, fist trembling, heart torn wide open, knowing that whatever we were, it was over. There's a moment after a bomb goes off where everything is quiet. Not peaceful, just eerily, sickeningly quiet. That's what the house felt like after Anna left. Like standing in the ruins of something that used to feel like home. Her perfume still hung in the air. Her coffee cup was still on the counter. Her phone charger was still plugged into the wall like she'd be back any minute. But I knew she wouldn't be. Not to apologize. Not to explain. She was with him now. Her lover. The guy who apparently saw her. The one who made her feel alive while I was working overtime, cooking dinner, folding her damn laundry. It wasn't even just the cheating. It was the contempt. The way she looked at me when I confronted her. Like I was some pathetic burden she'd finally gotten tired of carrying. Like I was the obstacle, not the victim. That's what did it. That's what snapped whatever was left of my restraint. I didn't scream. I didn't punch a wall. I sat down at the kitchen table, opened my laptop, and started removing her from my life one login at a time. First, the bank accounts. We shared a joint account for day-to-day expenses, but all the major savings were in mine, and I had control of all the linked cards. Within minutes, her cards were blocked. Frozen. I moved everything into a new personal account with my name only and updated all the security questions. Then I cut off her access to the streaming accounts, the food delivery apps, the insurance policies, every tool, every subscription, every line her name was on. Her phone? Still on my plan. That would change soon, too. I thought about the rent. I thought about the furniture. I thought about how much of this house had been built with me, my time, my money, my sweat. And yet somehow, she had the audacity to walk out like she was the one setting herself free. She took her betrayal and wore it like liberation. So I made a list. Everything she was still tied to through me. Every account, every shared expense, every connection. By the end of the afternoon, she was locked out of all of it. Then I called her family. I hadn't spoken to her older sister in months, maybe even a year. We drifted, as couples sometimes do with in-laws. But she picked up on the first ring, surprised to hear from me. I didn't waste time. I told her what happened. I told her what Anna had said to me before walking out. I didn't cry. I didn't beg for sympathy. I just told her the truth. Your sister is having an affair. She's staying with the guy. She said I was boring. And she left without even trying to save it. There was silence on the other end. Then a stunned, "She what?" I didn't go into every detail. I didn't need to. The shame would do its own work. That phone call was followed by another to her aunt, who always acted like we were her golden couple. And finally, a text to her mother, who adored me, and who, I knew, would never look at Anna the same way again after this. Let her be with her lover. Let her bask in that, alive, feeling while the ground crumbled beneath her feet. Because if she thought she could destroy our marriage and walk away untouched, she didn't know me at all. And when she tried to reach out later that night, just a text, a simple, "Can we talk?" I didn't answer. She called. I let it ring. Then another message, "Please. Just 5 minutes." I stared at it until the screen dimmed, then deleted the thread. She made her choice. And now she gets to live in it. No comfort. No soft landing. No grace. I wasn't going to play the heartbroken husband anymore. That guy died the second she smiled while talking to her lover in our home. The second she shrugged and said, "So what?" Like what she did meant nothing. Like I meant nothing. Let her have him. Let him see what it's like when the woman who lies that easily smiles at you from across the bed. As for me, I was done being quiet. You don't wake up one day and feel fine. That's not how it works. After Anna left, after I shut her out, I spent weeks wandering through the wreckage of what used to be my life. Not angry. Not devastated. Just blank. The kind of numb that follows after pain so intense, your body can't keep feeling it anymore. I'd sit at the kitchen table in the mornings, sipping coffee in silence, staring at the seat across from me like a ghost might still show up and try to talk her way back in. But nothing came. She was gone. The house was quiet in a new, strange way, not sad, just stripped clean. Her perfume faded from the air. Her toothbrush disappeared from the bathroom. I donated the throw blanket she always curled up in on the couch because I couldn't look at it anymore without hearing her laugh in my head. The silence was finally honest. People kept asking if I was okay. I told them I was. And eventually, I started to mean it. I threw myself into work. I hit the gym harder than I ever had. I started cooking real meals again, just for myself, just because I could. I reconnected with friends I hadn't seen in ages, made plans, showed up. I got my own place, something smaller, something mine. No echoes of shared memories, no haunted closets filled with things that used to mean something. It wasn't flashy. It wasn't perfect. But for the first time in a long time, it felt like me. And somewhere in the middle of all that, of the mess and the progress and the slow, harder and calm, I met someone. It wasn't a grand romance. It didn't feel like lightning. It felt like light. Her name's Emily. We met through a mutual friend, bumped into each other a couple times at group things before we ever exchanged more than a few words. She was patient, easy to talk to. She asked questions and actually waited for the answers. There was no performance, no games. Just presence. Just warmth. I didn't tell her everything at first. How could I? But slowly, over time, she got pieces of the story. The truth, not the drama. She never pitted me. She never asked for details I wasn't ready to give. She just listened. And when I told her what happened, really told her, she didn't recoil. She didn't flinch. She just said, "You didn't deserve that. And I'm glad you're still here." It wasn't about replacing Anna. It wasn't about fixing something broken. It was about rediscovering that I still had something to offer, that I could trust someone again, even if it took time, that not every touch had to come with suspicion, not every laugh had to carry the weight of pretending. I never thought I'd be someone starting over at 36. I thought I had my forever already. But forever only means something if the other person is still standing beside you when it gets hard, when it gets real, when things stop being shiny. Anna walked away from that. I'm building something new. And this time, I'm not looking back. It's strange how quiet the world gets once the storm inside you fades. Not the silence of grief, that heavy, hollow silence where everything echoes. This is something else. A stillness. A kind of peace that doesn't announce itself, doesn't come with applause or fireworks. It just shows up one morning in the way you pour your coffee. In the fact that your hands don't shake anymore. In the way you laugh, really laugh, for the first time in what feels like years. I still think about her sometimes. Of course I do. Not constantly, not even painfully, just occasionally. Like an old song that drifts through a speaker in a grocery store and catches you off guard. I'll remember the way she used to curl her hair, or the stupid inside jokes we had about cereal brands, or the way she'd hum when she worked. For a second, it feels like that person still exists. And then I remember what she became. Or maybe what she always was, and I just refuse to see it. I don't hate her. I don't think I ever truly will. Hate's heavy. And if I've learned anything over the last year, it's how much lighter life becomes when you start putting things down. Do I forgive her? I don't know. Maybe. Maybe not in the way she'd want. I've stopped waiting for that feeling people talk about, the one where you're supposed to let go and float off into some enlightened sense of closure. I don't need that. I don't need anything from her anymore. She burned the bridge. I just chose not to stand in the ashes. What I do feel is gratitude. Not for the betrayal, never that, but for the clarity that came after. I see myself more clearly now. I know what I'm capable of, both in the best and worst ways. I know that I can be brought to my knees and still get back up. I know I can start over with nothing and build a life that feels whole, not just patched together with obligation and history. And for the first time, I'm not building for two. I'm building for me. For the man who stayed. Who didn't lie. Who didn't run. Who looked betrayal in the face and still managed to find love again, not just in someone else, but in himself. Emily and I are taking things slow. She knows my history. I know hers. There are no illusions between us, no blind faith, just honesty. She's the kind of person who meets you where you are, not where she wishes you were. And I never thought I'd find something like that again. But here it is. So here I am. Not the man I used to be. Not the broken shell I became. Just me, standing in the light, finally, on the other side of it all. And if anyone out there is reading this, sitting in the dark, wondering how the hell you're going to survive what someone else did to you, just know, it's going to hurt. It's going to hollow you out. It's going to make you question every version of love you ever believed in. But you will come back. You will rebuild. And when you do, you'll be stronger than they ever imagined.